There are mainly two kind of data buyers, so two completely different breeds. It's really a dirty and clouded world we try to work within. And since there are no real standards, you don't know the problems you're going to get once you enter the jungle, so to speak, what kind of animals you're going to face. And so I would divide the world in those that don't know, they even don't know what they don't know, and those that know exactly what the points are. And I would say that historical data, quality, and service level agreements are the key elements.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Scraping Insights, a series of video interviews curated by the Web Scraping Club. Today, we have Andrea Squatrito, CEO of databoutique.com, which we founded together some time ago. We'll talk about the data economy, its business models, and how companies and freelancers can monetize their skills and data.
This interview is brought to you by databoutique.com, a marketplace for web data.
Hi Andrea, thank you for being here.
Hi Pierluigi, thanks for having me.
Always nice to see you. We have been working together for so long, but some of the audience probably don't know much more about you. So do you mind introducing yourself a bit?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm a long-time business partner and friend with Pierluigi. Our work relation dates back I think it's almost 20 years ago when we started working at Accenture. Then we moved separate ways. We always worked into the data space, working with very large data infrastructures, in data warehouses and business intelligence systems, especially in the financial industry. When more or less 10 years ago, we on the wave of the availability of cloud computing, me and Pierluigi, we started at the beginning as a side project to work with web data extractors. We were delivering large data sets to the financial institutions, hedge funds in the US, in Asia, and in the UK. And after that, concurrently, that's when we founded our first data company. And so me and Pierluigi, we founded Reanalytics back in 2014, at the end of 2014, which marks the astonishing landmark of 10 years this year. And then we then moved to evolved to Data Boutique just very, very recently. But our friendship and our common experience in that ground dates a long time ago.
Great. So you mentioned the Reanalytics, a web data company, and Data Boutique, which is a marketplace for web data. So we have seen together the differences between the two models, the two businesses. What are, according to you, the pros and the cons of these two different businesses? Because in my opinion, there's still a leader in both of the fields. And so something probably is missing still nowadays in the area.
Yeah. Let's start from the web data business. Okay, so the web data business has multiple elements of the value chain that that are put in place in order to deliver the value to the end customer, and only part of it is due to the actual web data extraction. Most of it also comes from enrichment, cleaning, deduplication, or even advanced analytics that you might put on top, be it dashboards, be it other transformation that you could put in place. Now, the problem is that since all of the other steps are only possible just because you do the extraction, then we tend to confuse the data extraction as the only core element. But I do believe that the biggest players in the data extraction, the web, in the web as a web data providers, have much more than the mere data collection in place. Whereas on the other side, at least where we decided to position Data Boutique, it is on the actual sole step of actually getting the data from a website into a structured format, solving all specific issues of that very well-defined space. But on the other side, it is still compatible, and we have both of data vendors and data buyers on our platform who are data providers to third party, just because it is way more complicated. If you speak with the largest companies, sure, their activity goes way beyond collecting the data. Sure, collecting the data is an important part, but the real value you get from there is how you enrich it, how you understand the differences from industry to industry. Some industries have more needs or the specific needs more on precision, more on time, freshness, others on accuracy, and can have a way different granularities, or data can be delivered on a much rarer scale. But still, the challenges they have, they are so niche and they are so difficult actually to deploy. And that's still the business of a data provider. Now, where we position on the other side was, okay, let's concentrate on one, step, which is making available the pure raw data. Still, it's structured, so it's not, technically speaking, raw HTML taken down from the website, but it takes a very specific layer in the meantime. So data marketplaces are, I think Data Boutique is the first of its kind that really chooses which kind of data to have in, and I think it makes more clear the value proposition and how you actually blend into the other businesses. But other generic marketplaces that make no difference between proprietary data and non-proprietary data, as web scraping can be, or even enhanced data sets, if you think of long time series with also aggregated indicators, and there are many very nice data providers out there, then of course they tend to mix because you can have different layers of value added data sets. So I like to think that a data marketplace, or even better, an exchange, as a very clear role in the industry, and does not reach until the end user, whereas the data provider itself, it is the one that actually makes sense of the data, and they can actually even purchase it from the Data Boutique, or they can from a marketplace, and they can actually even sell it through the marketplace, because it is compatible. At least that's one of the ways I like to see it in the entire value chain of information, because it's way longer than we expect, and there's so many roles in between to reach that. So that's the way I see it. The difference between what we were doing when we were a pure data provider, when we were both extracting, enriching the data, trying to match products across retailers, trying to deduplicate information, trying to enrich merchants, to enrich products, to enrich and standardize. That is a very hard job to do, and it often gets mixed and not well understood from the end consumer. But it is a different job, and what a data marketplace it's completely different. Tries to offer a seamless experience of choosing and benchmarking and purchasing to bring price transparency. It's a little bit a different role they have in the data pipeline, at least the way I tend to see it.
Great. So running a marketplace, we have the chance to talk with both buyers and sellers, and they have different needs. Talking about the sellers for a bit, what are the challenges for them today? How they can sell more data? Why they cannot sell more data in the actual landscape?
In my view, there is the data selling business. It's I would say it's a kind of business where the personal relationship it plays a strong role Okay, it's very difficult to get it only through SEO or by other marketing means. The sales force still plays an enormous role, and that is basically because the overall amount, the entire cost of a data project is still very, very expensive, and it's difficult to bring it down because of the customizations. So if you in a market which still there is too little bit of standardization, so each customer asks for a different kind of product, for a customized a problem to be solved, then it is expensive to build it custom just for them until we are able to sort of have enough modules and we have enough standardization in the business so that we can reuse specific items. And I think aside from the data marketplaces, there are really a large number of examples in the web scraping industry where the industry tries to reuse. If you think of the reuse of scrapers within ABFI store, for example, which is a great example in my opinion, to try to reuse the effort that somebody else did. But in the current business, there are simply too many websites. There are simply too many use cases. It's so very fragmented that it's difficult to standardize. Now, we hope that bringing it at the public level, to bring more transparency, to speak openly about the websites that are collected, will enhance polarization towards most frequent extractions, so that it is easier to find what you're already looking for, right? There's somebody else already has done something that suits well enough what you're looking for from a buy-side perspective. So from a sell-side perspective, you have a stage where you can showcase what your products are and increase the chances to find someone whose needs kind of sort of meet what your product is. And I think once we start to be there, there are some elements that need to be tackled, which I think the sell side still is very reluctant to do so, which is price transparency. But price transparency is not there just because they don't want to. It's because the pricing model, it's extremely complicated. So it depends a lot on how many records you scrape, the frequency, the service level agreements you want to make, the customization of the data schema that you want to put through, what kind of transformation you need to, and enrichments you need to do on the data once it's extracted. So we took this huge effort, and this is the reason why we only care, or we only handle the very basic layer of data extraction, because there it's easier to find common ground, to find a common agreed pricing structure, which with an agreed pricing structure brings the price and the quality standards shareable, can be publicized, can be made public, and this will, and this actually does, as in the marketplace, it's showing that the market is needing for that more transparency, because it's easier to know how much I'm going to spend on this data. It also increases the reusability of the data. So this is actually what it brought us when we were doing as data provider, what brought us to understand the problem of a marketplace, because it needs to do as much reuse as possible, because you are in a limited capacity. You can't scale and scrape whatever comes through your door with infinite elasticity. You need to reuse and make leverage of what you already are extracting, which is challenging if you are just a data provider alone with and limited to your sales force to reach out. And it needs something else. But to do so, we needed to find common ground and say, okay, these are rules we can agree upon from the pricing structure and the quality elements, which are the two main challenges, I think, in doing this. And once you do that, then it's easier to talk publicly with the buyers. There are a ton of buyers who need data. It needs a way to talk more in a more simple way, more direct way, in a clearer way. There are buyers, there are sellers, there are great people out there extracting data, and there are also an enormous amount of people actually looking for data. We just need to create a better way to speak with each other. There are also other data marketplaces that do excellent jobs focusing on other elements of the market. What we have chosen is the actual exchange, to know what you're buying, to know what is the standard of the quality you're going to. And to do so, we also took this extra step to focus only on web scraping, which was kind of differentiating from other data marketplaces. And I think that the choice is paying off, seeing the volumes that's come through, seeing the interest from the buy side, seeing also the interest from the sell side. We are addressing something. There are data providers that are perfectly capable to scaling out. Now the problem is to let the outside world know that they actually can deliver that. They actually are already doing this, and that's the main point we're trying to address. It's not an easy job, but it does pay off.
Great. You mentioned buyers, data buyers. You mentioned the price transparency, the data quality also. But what do you think that are the key elements for data buyers to make the decision, I buy this data or I don't buy this data? What the data buyers are looking for in our experience? So
I would say there are mainly two kind of data buyers, so two completely different breeds. There are those who did not have access to the data before, and they just take it. They just take it whether it's affordable enough for their purpose. And the fact of creating a transparent pricing has made that possible. I have a countless number of examples in my mind where there's just people who say, "Oh, I didn't even know I could have that, and I didn't even know what the price for this was." Now, for some business cases, the price makes sense; for others, doesn't. But if the pricing model is structured well, then you have those, and for those, they just grab it. They did because they were looking for it, and they didn't even know yet that what the other group of the buyers already knew because they were buying before, which is you need quality controls, you need service level agreements, and basically these are the two, and you need historical data. Okay. Now the second group of the class is those that we're already working with data over and with many vendors, and tried also doing or are doing actually web scraping internally. They exactly know what the real needs are, which is, as I said, the data quality, the single data extraction. It is consistent, it is stable, it is comparable across the different extractions that one might need. It is complete. One of the most difficult things to test in this kind of business. It will deliver consistently. What is called the service level agreements. You can trust that this data feed will continue to work on tomorrow. This is something that the first group didn't even know that these problems even existed. But actually, if you're used to build a data pipeline on top of a web scraping system, whatever the feed is, that is one of the key elements. So I would say data quality, service level agreements, and historical data. Although historical data, I would say it's not mandatory for some case studies, but let's say for the majority of those, it most definitely helps. So whatever we are asked, and it doesn't really matter the industry. It can be AI companies, it can be hedge funds, it can be consulting companies, it can even be dynamic pricing, infrastructures, or competitive intelligence SaaS. They all look for historical data, and it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. It does. There are some use cases where you don't need that, but surely data quality, it's mandatory, and you don't know it until you go out and try to to purchase some data. There are some data on sale in some marketplaces that, if you know a little bit around in this database, you immediately understand they are not worth it. Even trying to work with it, because it's really a dirty and clouded world we try to work within. And since there are no real standards, and you don't know the problems you're gonna get once you enter the jungle, so to speak, what kind of animals you're gonna face. And so I would divide the world in those that don't know, that they even don't know what they don't know, and those that know exactly what the points are. And I would say that historical data quality and service level agreements are the key elements. Then of course there are some derived stuff on it. So I would say on a secondary level, because it depends on the use case that you would do, that it is legally to use. I know it sounds laughable. Theoretically, you would expect everyone to have something legal to use, but in web scraping, well, you can have pretty much the entire range, right? From personal and privacy related content, which is troublesome in map, and it is right that is this way in many geographies, or copyright infringement, for example, or terms of use infringement. There are industries that pay extreme attention to that. There are industries that unfortunately they don't pay enough attention to that. And so that is also an important point. And by the way, we decided to be very clear on what you can find and what you cannot find within Data Boutique. But I would say this is what we, not only what we get asked the most, this is what we get asked, period. That's it. That's all the conversation revolves around when we talk about raw data, of course.
Yes, building such a open and clearly transparent web exchange of web data is being so open is crucial to have inside data that is perfectly legal to use. Otherwise, we all
it's a little bit it's a little bit you don't know, a chicken and egg problem. You need basically the true element here. You need volumes. So you need volumes in order to make sense of the cost of the extraction. Okay, because if you want everyone to use your extraction that costs you so much because you needed to use all the mobile and residential proxies that you needed, then you need to sell too many. Okay, so that the cost can be split among multiple users. But if you need to sell too many, you need to be public. And if you need to be public, it needs to be at least in the white side of this data business. Thanks God, there are many activities and blogs. There's more transparency today in what are the legal aspects of web scraping. I think of the great work that like Zeit is doing with all their advisory on legality, and I think it helps understanding. When we started, and even not going too long back ago, even in Europe, especially in Italy, where we had the most discussion with legal advisors, it's very unknown territory. It's uncharted territory, and so it is important to have clear view of what is legal and what's not, because you don't want a business to be blocked by this, and it has to be public in order to drop barriers to entry. And this is basically what we're trying to do.
Yes. Speaking about being publicly open to everyone, from a seller perspective, sometimes we get asked by companies that are willing to sell data, but they don't want to sell data to their competitors. Is it something that is really as a sense, or or since data is a commodity, it does not real.
This is it goes back to the topic that I said before. So the difference between a data provider and what we do as a data marketplace. So a data provider has a very long and complex value chain, which the actual technical aspect of just scraping and those of the club, I hope they will forgive me for that. The pure getting a data from a website into a structured table, that actually is only a small part of what they do. They do a lot of transfer because the data needs to be clean, it needs to be refined, it needs to be deduplicated, it needs to be collected and aggregated, and you need to build the actual time series. There's so much going on after that work that all the data providers do, especially those that they have like a SaaS interface where you provide market intelligence or you provide dynamic pricing. Okay. But the fact that the entire pile of operations actually sits and cannot be performed without that layer of web scraping, they tend to confuse and they tend to underestimate the value that the rest has. So we tend to identify, if I can get the data from, I don't know, if I can get the data from Airbnb or Zalando or Nike.com, then it's somewhat my differentiator in the market. Now, the truth is everyone can have the Nike.com data, and your competitors are already doing that. And whether you sell it or not to them, the raw data, actually they're going to work anyway. It doesn't really matter. The world exists, even if you don't tell anyone that you're having those data. Now, the only point is you're not monetizing it. And since it's a very important cost, actually monetizing it, it makes a total sense in this world. And to be frank, the very original idea of Data Boutique was really happened when a competitor, when we were data providers, and then one day a data competitor calls me and says, "Oh, look, Andrea, we are on the Zalando, actually scraper. It broke and we are short-staffed now. I have a project I need to deliver, and please sell me your data. I know that we do the same." So it was very secretive space where we didn't actually say exactly to the others what website we were scraping and what not, but really it's a short-lived secret. And the fact that if you can deliver good data quality with a level of service that is acceptable to others, and the price is fair, whatever the price is, the maths are with you. It's a win-win. Even if you decide to sort of have a price that's different than your actual extraction cost, as long as obviously it is still a very raw material, far off from your actually core delivery value proposition. Okay, if you deliver dynamic pricing, for example, and you're reading, I don't know, mobile phone or electronics prices on a daily or even daily frequency, why not sell it? If there are others that will, the differentiator between you and the others is not whether you scrape that website, it's the accuracy on which your algorithms can perform. Because web data, guess what? It's out there anyway, whether you even exist in the market or not. So to me, I know it's sometimes it's counterintuitive because going in a direction of collaboration, it can be scary at first place, and we are used to work in opposition. But truly, there are ways to fit each puzzle piece so that we actually benefit. And who knows, maybe it's more convenient for you. Maybe you're more efficient, you're better structured, you have a greater quality assurance policy that allows you to have way bigger volumes and reach not only the clients you are able to get directly, but also to serve other companies that serve different markets or that use the data in different ways and still use yours. I think there's an opportunity actually in unbundling the entire value chain and create different roles, right? As it happens in many other industries, especially in commodity. You don't expect Starbucks to actually work in the fields. You know that they actually get the coffee beans from farmers that are very efficient in providing high levels of volume of raw materials so that you can actually serve the client, and the role is very, very distinct.
Great. You mentioned also before in this answer the price of a data set, which is, let's say, lower than expected on Data Boutique compared to other solutions or other prices we see around. And sometimes it is scary enough the sellers to not join Data Boutique. So why there are so many data sets for a few bucks on Data Boutique, and is it a sustainable way to sell data?
This requires going back to the previous point, and what does it take to make it easier to talk with those that want to buy, to find the common ground, which it goes, of course, into prices, because it is the other side of the transaction. Get data for money, you need to know how much money it is worth. And I think the first time that it's been published, if you think of a data set of 10 euros, let's say 10 euros for a single scrape of a website, and there are on Data Boutique data sets that are even cheaper than 10 euros, but people concentrate on the 10 euros. But it's like, I don't know, it's like the price per ton of iron or price per ton of copper, and still doesn't really make any sense. Nobody buys a single element of raw material. It's a unit economics measure, and usually the real buyers, they buy multiple units of it. So if you think, let's say, for example, an easy to scrape websites with no complicated anti-bots that you need to pass through. If you price it at 10 and you have a daily subscriber, it means that to scrape that you would charge 3,650 euros per year. Now, I know that many buyers won't even buy that, because for that amount, you hire someone to do it internally. If it is that simple, you would never put it in your shoes. Would you buy it for that price? And there are, of course, going back to the kind of buyers, there are buyers that did not have any access. They don't know the market. Of course, there is information asymmetry in this. So there is a certain amount of market, but the real market, the real volumes would not buy it because they know their internal cost of doing so. And what we say, so as there are two buyers, there are also two kind of data sellers. So there are data sellers that are, which we already thought, which we originally thought Data Boutique for, which is those that actually are collecting data already. So let's say you do scraping of Nike.com because you have your dynamic pricing system, or your sneaker marketplace system in place, and you are monitoring the Nike.com website on a daily basis. So you have that cost anyway. You have any advantage of selling at any price point. Okay. And if it's low enough, even if it's below, let's assume it's below your cost, your cost, which I know it's a big step to do. There are some sellers who do so, mostly don't, but there are some sellers who do so. If you sell it under, then you would attract more buyers, because it would totally make sense. It would totally make sense to buy it if it is below your cost as a buyer. And there are so many competitive intelligence, dynamic pricing, and market monitoring systems that are scraping Nike.com, that if it's advantages for them, you get a 10x, or 20x users just because you did that. Now, there's a bias in this, that it only looks at those that were already bearing the cost of extraction because of their own services. Now, it is a slightly different mathematics that works. The math is different if you start scraping just for the clients on the marketplace, because of course there's no one else out there you can split the cost on. So to start, it's tougher if you go to scraping below the cost. But that, again, this is not something that we suggest. This is just something that it's a math that you have an advantage if you're already doing that. But it's if nothing blocks you from asking your price. And there are buyers willing to get the data if it makes any sense, right? So I think that the price scares for two reasons. One, it splits in a way that nobody looked at. Okay, it's the single scan of one day. But if you I've seen a data provider that was also listed on another data marketplace. They were charging 5,000 euros per a single day data collection of a website, and a 5,000 for an annual subscription. Now, it's a little bit unrelated. How many single day scripts do you sell if for the same price you get it for a year? You of course tend to push a year, right? But it makes a lot of difficulties for trying to understand what's the logic behind it. So the logic says, I don't want to sell it below 5,000 because I have already other clients. I'm selling it at 5,000 and I can't drop it. Otherwise I'm cannibalizing my own products. But the reality is it's bugged. So don't sell it or keep on selling it that way. But, we have a different vision of the market. We have a vision to allow, entry level, because at least what we saw, about our use cases is that people that, let's say that 5,000 a year, you split it and you make a 30 a day, which is way above the 5K a year if you do it on a daily basis. But with 30 a day, you would get a lot of people just buying the single script because they want to try. And if they are interested, they will subscribe to the annual one. And if they're not, well, they wouldn't have bought it the full in any case. So it's a great tool it's a great transparent pricing, and a pricing that actually makes sense. It's a great way to go through the sales funnel and start from an easy to chew bite and then grow on as much as you need. And it's a lot connected to the way the elastic compute or the cloud compute system just rolled out. They let you try and play around with marginal with marginal costs to you, so that they find who really has a bigger need. Because when they have a bigger need, they already tried and they already using your dataset or the dataset in your format. So I'm a big fan of transparent and transparent pricing models that actually make sense when you look at them. If you think of cloud computing, for example, it's a great example. I always take it's an EC2, like Amazon, AWS, EC2 web server instance for, I think of micro instance or nano, instance.
Micro.
It costs 0.068 cents per hour. It's obviously not related to the cost of the bare metal, but it was their lowering the barriers. It was them opening the gates to anyone to try. If, of course, you have the infrastructure that allows it. And this is something that I really appreciated. That really inspired us when we moved in that direction, because you have so many different needs. Some needs the annual, but many don't. I would never buy it for 5K. Okay. But maybe, if you price it 30, you would have 100, clients that would buy it for 30. Okay. That you wouldn't even haven't heard of. They wouldn't even come closer, to you. And that's just extra revenue. And among those, maybe 10% are those that will eventually turn into purchasing the annual subscription, because they already have tried. They know already, how to do with data. They can find the insights. They can find the value within the data that you're trying, but you didn't even let them try. Right. And now the opposite could be, and I like this pricing topic a lot because it's really cornerstone. There's two ways. You can go, very, let's say, democratic in the way you set the pricing, or very, elite and very, niche, and only serve the top, clients. Now, the problem with the top clients is that it's still web scrape data, and there's still ROI embedded in the kind of that. You can price it 10 millions for scraping very, very good a single website. Nobody will give you that. Okay. Or if you have a 10 millions contract, you are scraping so many actually websites that, the actual marginal cost per website is not that far from the prices that are broken down and being put, for example, on a platform like, Data Boutique. So it's a different way of showing it. It's a different way of seeing the price, right? It's not the actual spend you would have. It's 10 euros. It's what you pay. It's the unit price for your product. Okay. And thinking about how many units each customer will get. And if you do the maths, it's even more expensive to do so, or it pays more. There's more margin in doing so than actually charging a 10K per extraction that you would have a hard time finding.
Yes, totally agree, of course.
That's a good.
Now, on this series of videos, we have one sort of the last question is something like a recurring question, and of course, it's about AI. So, what do you think about AI in web scraping? Will it make web scraping less relevant, or is making more relevant? Or creating the scrapers will be less relevant because it will be made by AI?
So there's two sides as an exchange. We're in the middle of two sides. There's an exchange of data, and the data, of course, needs still to be extracted. Okay. So if you look at the supply side, well, the AI will make it ideally faster, easier to keep up with the website's change, keep up with the minor website makeups, or the change of the layout, the change of the expat, or whatever elements you are considering. Whoever does web scraping, and I'm sure in this club, it's plenty of them, knows how painful it is to run after each website change. Every time a website changes, there's the extraction breaks. So if AI, and I've seen some initial projects that tend to simplify that. If AI improves the quality, that will bring to higher reliability of data. If AI allows you to more with a lower cost, now then depends on the cost of the AI tool. But if AI allows you with a lower cost to achieve the data, then it's a positive for data market, because data it can float the market in a cheaper way, in a more reliable way, and that's all positive. Of course, that is whatever helps extracting. You simply extract more. There's no way it could damage. One thing that could damage is if web scraping was suddenly not possible anymore. Okay. If AI was working against it. But as a matter of fact, as it works today, from what we are seeing now, and we are already a year and a half, inside the AI explosion, the Gen AI explosion, it's actually working the other way around. It's simplifying it's making it easier. Now you are the expert in this field, but my understanding from the big picture is this is the direction it's going through. It's not working against, it's working on the tailwinds. It's working for it. Now and that's for the supply side. Now for the demand side, I see basically there are two areas you look at AI. One is the core training of absolutely new models. I think to train from scratch a new model today might be let's say a gigantic, if not impossible, task to do, too much capital intensive, and those that already did in a gray area of data compliance, to put it mildly. They already built such great models, but the vertical focus, this is where I see a lot of demand increase. Okay, the vertical focus of specific models. If we think still the classic examples of dynamic pricing, and you want to build something that is focused on dynamic pricing in cosmetics, which of course cosmetics have a different behavior than airline companies, or a different behavior than electronics. They have different seasonality of clothing, for example, or fashion, and there's all tools that the algorithms and if you want to use AI in it and train AI to do so, vertical specialization, so that they become even better than us at doing something, they need to be trained. So I see a great potential, a great advancement in demand to train them, and once they're trained, to operate them, because you still, if you were web scraping for the component that we take a look the most, where prices play a gigantic role, prices need to be monitored continuously. It's not that if you trained your algorithm on inflation prediction, then once trained, you don't read the prices anymore. Or if you trained it on dynamic pricing, once you trained it, you don't need the data anymore. You need the data on a constant basis. And the more algorithms are good at it, the more there will be a strong demand for it. So I'm quite positive in this challenge, both from the supply side, then from the demand side, and then of course it's us in the middle, where I see AI in many actually different aspects, from making the buyer experience and as well as the seller's experience better, easier, provide us as an assistance to interact with the platform, to interact with the entire community, because often it's not that one is purely seller, one is purely buyer, but there's often interactions among them, and we are already exploring some ways to slowly insert interactions that are AI driven. Okay, and so I'm quite optimistic in the impact that this the AI is having in the web scraping industry and in the web data industry in general. One thing that I would like to add is that there still needs to be clarity about regulation and what kind of data it is played, and this is something that we really care about, so that when someone is building a model based on that data, they are safe, or they are as safe as possible. Let's put it this way, because we don't know what legislation is going to be tomorrow, but we have a fair or an educated a guess, at least, of where the direction might be, it's more likely to be safe to take it from there, because at least it's traceable, it's transparent the way it was collected, then do it inside and try to reverse engineering all your compliance issues and try to take track, and you don't even know where we're going to end at the end. So positive, yes, with the note on regulation that I hope that US and EU might find at least a compatible way to interact with this. my 2 cents on the topic. So I do bear data. So whatever's built on data, I just make assumption. But that's the way I see it.
Great. So I think we arrived to the end of the conversation. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for actually having started this video series, which I think they offer a new, different insights on how the data work is progressing. I hope this was as pleasant for the audience as it was for me. Thank you again, Pierluigi, for having me. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.